And one. I think we're recording. All right, man. Okay, so first things first. I didn't want to do like a big intro or anything, but first thing I wanted to get off our plates here is how you pronounce your last name.
Well, it depends on what part of the world you're in, but on this, I've always been called Cipoletti. Is
Okay, damn it. I've been called you
Cipoletti,
Bud Cipoletti for
which is
the
funny because that's the proper pronunciation according to my father. If you're in Sicily and you see my name, you would say Cipoletti. So
Okay. All
you're
right.
not wrong. You're not wrong.
So it is Italian, eh?
I think it is Italian, yeah.
Yeah, very nice. That's always been one thing where I say your name all the time, whether I'm talking to my wife about something cool you did or a project comes up and your name comes up for like inspiration or whatever. And I've always said Chip Lady, so that's good to get off. And then
You're,
okay,
you're dialed.
so for your first name, is Bud short for anything?
It's not short for anything. It's just what everybody's been calling me in, home videos since I was a kid. But my real name on my license is Arthur. I'm a
No
junior.
way.
Yeah, but very few people in my life refer to me as Arthur. But
Wow, look at this investigative journalism I'm doing.
yeah, yeah, you're doing a good job. We're digging
Dude, that's
deep.
Arthur Cipoletti. Okay,
That's
very
right.
nice. We got that out of the way. All right. So first question I asked you, for some clarification on it through text like a couple hours ago is you have five children.
Yep.
How have you how have you structured your like work life to accommodate the need and probably the want obviously too to be home with your family?
Yeah, it's not easy, and it definitely requires a special person to be alongside to make that happen. I mean, the bottom line is my family, we've lived in six different states in the last 5 years amongst
Mhm.
having the family, so it's like being able to, at a necessity, really, to stay on the road. And, I have a family to feed, and that keeps the fire burning. And you're on the same page, you're business partners. And it's like when I go sometimes for 2, 3 weeks at a time, she just mans the fort, and
Really?
takes care of the kids. And it's not easy, it's not glorious, but we get through it. And sometimes I'm home for 3 months at a time and I don't have
Yeah.
any shoots. So it's just that balance, that work life balance that, with five kids is constantly in flux. But, it shows them that, I hope they just see a dad who's just like working his, trying his best, working his hardest, and that maybe that reflects on them as well.
Yeah, for sure. Is so is that one thing where you're not really willing to give up your passions in your work for something maybe that would keep you home like a regular 9 to 5 or anything? Like is that some like one value that you've really instilled in yourself and that you want to pass down is to kind of chase your dreams in a sense?
Yeah, I think like a life without passion, being able to like walk away from something and look back at it at the end of the day and feel that feeling of like I built this, or it's like building a house or something. It's just a level of satisfaction that's primal, to succeed, and chase something down that you enjoy and that you enjoy putting time into and like gaining skill into. And for me, that was, started in 2007 when I picked up a camera and never stopped. Basically, it was always an honor to have an audience, and I think that's what I chase is just the honor over and over again to have a captive audience to appreciate and feel something, that you spend time on. That's a tough thing to give up for a 9 to 5 for me. It's like it brings you all over the world. It gets you around people you would have never met, and you create lifelong bonds and you wind up with a network all over the world. And these people become family, because you're spending, like I saw your last podcast, it's like, you're spending 16 hours a day, maybe more, with these people,
Mhm.
grinding yourself down to the bone. And I think the military does that for the same reason, to create these bonding experiences, because you're just all grinding. It's like you go I go shoot steelhead with the boys in Alaska or wherever we are, and these guys can go without a bite for days and days and days. And it's like you're just all grinding out there, but you just wind up bonding over it, really. So there is that factor of like once you're in it, you don't want to get out of it because it's like a inner circle of like I don't know, it's been a wild ride. And it's lucrative. It could be very lucrative passion, and my goal really is to never stop like trying to grow and trying to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So my eyes are on the prize. Definitely no option for slowing down for a 9 to 5 unless it's something insane. If a biotech company told me they'd come give me 750 grand a year to be a marketing for them, it'd be a thought then. But
Yeah. All right, so we know your price now. Okay, good. Um,
yeah, yeah.
Before you picked up a camera back in '07, in your like previous jobs and stuff, did you have that feeling of like being stuck and kind of wanting to break free? And what was
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was.
your mindset and kind of your life like at that point?
Yeah, it was. It's an awesome time to think back to now with like retrospect and
Hmm.
wisdom, more wisdom. It's like I graduated with an English degree and a focus in creative writing. So I was like really into storytelling, but from a
Yep.
writing standpoint. So my two professors in college were like, "Hey, submit to these poetry publications," So I like got my whole manuscript together, like 10 poems, sent them off. I got denied by both. And I was like, nobody wants to read anymore. Social media was like just starting to pop off in like 2007, 2008. I was like,
Yep.
I'm going to pick up a camera because bass fishing then, which is something I was just back then, I wanted to be on the elites. I wanted to be a basser. So as soon as I graduated, I bought a bass boat and just like dove in and fished every tournament possible up and down the East Coast. That's when I met everyone in the industry,
Mm.
was back then. But I wound up going on into finance and I was like a stockbroker for 2 years. And it was so funny
No
because
way.
I had a calendar, like I had a cubicle literally and a calendar behind it. It was a Phoenix boats calendar. And at the time, I was running a 1992 Nitro Savage, and it was the
Hmm.
best boat ever. But I wanted this Phoenix represented like everything to me. And, you know, 5, 6 years later, I finally had one. But it was, I felt stuck. Yes. I wanted to be on the water when I was making calls. And the call to like make art was strong and enduring, and I found myself in my free time just making cuts and just making mistakes and just shooting um, on the side really for a long time. And once I was able to make the jump to a career in construction from finance, that gave me some more free time to chase fishing. Really is all I was concerned about at that time, was trying to be a pro basser and
Hmm.
shooting all the while, because I knew like the importance of content. um like in 2010, I felt that like if I had higher quality content, maybe I would be more marketable as a pro. So that's really where it started. And then I met this old dude. I never realized I had like interesting things to say, but I met this old dude at this pond, and he used to rent John boats out in upstate New York for the day, and he used to fish like the Red Man trails in
Hmm.
like back in the day. And he came up to me like right out of a book with like a cane, and he was like, "Listen, bud, don't waste your time." He's like, "All those guys, they just get all this information. You can't compete." Like, I watched, Roland Martin make a 90-mile run on the Hudson River and win that tournament, never being there before in his life, and he's like, you can't do it, don't do it. And I remember thinking to myself in that moment, I was like, okay, but if you, that all that really means to me is that if one had their own inner circle like amongst that, and like already situated one, like you could network your own information network. So that's when Featherwick really began. It began as like a crew of anglers that we were all trying to come up together, and we would share information in and amongst ourselves within
Mm,
that like old school group. And that was just a great time to be alive. When we were fishing tournaments, traveling around, I didn't have as many kids,
yep.
um, but all the while I was shooting and making mistakes and doing free work and doing jobs here and there for $500 here and there, whatever I could do. And really, I just making mistakes. Like, I can't even watch the stuff I made years ago anymore, but it was such an important time for growth to just hit record and like learn and see what comes of it and get on the edit program. And you know how it is, just the grind of all that. But fast forward, I don't fish tournaments at the time with all the young kids, and I'm just full time grinding the film world in the fishing industry mainly right now. So it's been a wild ride.
For sure. That's cool to It's funny, eh, how like sometimes you think like, man, I'm not interesting. I can't think of anything like good to say, and then something like that
Just think
pops
back.
up and like a little nugget comes out. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um I wanted to get into this a little later, but you already mentioned it, so might as well get into it. Explain Featherwick to me. I feel
Well,
like it's evolved maybe a little
it
bit, right?
has, and that's been
Okay.
the problem. And I was just talking to my dad the other day about getting a website up. I've probably made like 7 mock websites up over the years and never hit
Uh-huh.
publish on
Mm.
any of them because I can't put myself into a corner with like, this is what we do, this is what we offer. And
Yep.
it was always Featherwick was always like, I'm surprised I'm on this podcast because I feel like I've just been behind the scenes, like in the shadows, um,
Uh-huh.
because because it was always Featherwick. It was like my Shakespeare alias, like, and it was like the guys we had made up Featherwick. It was the core group of anglers, like Alec Morrison, Josh Douglas, Seth Fighter, like a lot of these guys, Chad Smith. Too many to list off in the more, but those guys like succeeded as anglers as I knew they were going to. I feel like I've always had like a sixth sense for guys that are just dialed in fishing. It's a worthless talent, really, in life to be like that guy's a good stick and he's gonna
Yeah.
be one of But for whatever reason, like these guys became my best friends, and they've done well and they've taken off. And the Featherwick logo has been on every one of their dashboards on the boats. And I'm just trying to do my best to keep up on the media side to keep those guys like, the original vision for Featherwick was like Quicksilver. I grew up watching like surfing and
Yep.
skate and snow films, and Quicksilver was able to take this brand and eventually have their own tour. And then they were
Mm.
like this like built-in community with a place on Times Square, like a storefront on Times Square. When I grew up
Mm.
in the city, I would go there, and I was like, Featherwick, I would love to see bass fishing move away from like NASCAR media exposure to like more like just high art and cool and like 2016 surf scene kind of vibe. And I've been able through the pros of through the Featherwick pros, I've been able to like expose that style into bass fishing more than I ever dreamt would happen. But to play a part in like the media, for Featherwick to play a part in like the culture of the media and the tournament culture like base, and then play into brands and like have brand work also reflect that, is it's an honor of a lifetime because that was the original goal for Featherwick, was to inject themselves as like a quick. Right now we're just like a shadow brand,
Mm-hmm.
um kind of like making media behind the scenes for brands. But it's great and I love it, but I would love to one day be able to take Featherwick, like the community side of it, not just the media end or whatever, like what I head and the angling end, but I would love to see like to play with the idea of like a 20-person tournament, with just Featherwick guys, call it the
Yep.
Featherwick Invitational, and structure it just like the Masters in golf, where it's like a
Mm.
standalone event, one a year. Like invite only. Like I'd love to see Featherwick like get to that point one day, but we're not there yet.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. So did Featherwick start out having to do anything with the production side, or was it just this like band of anglers that you wanted to get together? You guys all became friends, stayed close, and kind of focused on the fishing side of it. But now, when I think of Featherwick, to me, it's your production company. But it sounds like that's not 100%
Yeah,
true,
like
or like all of it. So like break that down for me.
yeah,
Is it
you're
the
right.
production company?
And
Is
that's
it
how
a group of
swirly my answer is so swirly because
that?
that's been the journey of like the company. Originally it started out it was not a production company. It was like a group of anglers with some merch, like t-shirts and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
And we were just gonna ride it to the Elite Series and then like whatever came of it came of it. But now, like my dad said too, he's like, what pays the bills? It's the production company. And now it's
Oh, yeah.
100%. I tried to rebrand it as FTHRWK
Mm-hmm.
just to give myself a slight like I'm not cornering myself into the Featherwick fishing stuff. This is like a
Yeah.
production company that can
Gotcha.
do, anything, product studio ads to
Mm-hmm.
so 100% now it's evolved into a major a production company 100%. And there's just we have like a guys on tour that will rock our like institute triangle
Yeah. Yeah.
just to be affiliated. Like I'll go film those guys, no charge, just to keep it growing and do right by people and but 100%
Awesome.
you're right, it's evolved into a production company.
Okay. So yeah, you kind of got like the branding, like big vision side of it that you want to keep watering and growing and seeing where that you could take that, and more of like almost like a creative outlet for that vision that you had. And then Featherwick, the production company, is paying the bills. You're working with your small set of clients and producing some pretty unreal media in the creative space for the outdoors industry. So okay, that clears things up a little more. So but it's funny how like the logo's kind of got that like Illuminati feel to it, because how you just broke it down, I feel like it's like the Illuminati of fishing.
Yeah, I mean that was really it was iconic, and
Yeah.
the Illuminati one points up the triangle. And
Mm.
my thought behind it originally was like it points down because as anglers, we were always like we're atop a boat and like we're in this realm of unknown below us.
Uh-huh.
So it was like the all-seeing eye.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's live scope. It was live scope before live scope came
Yeah.
out. It's
Yeah.
That's all it's saying is here's the point, here's the eye, like cast there. But this was like on instinct back in the day. Now it's not instinct anymore, but
That's awesome. How many joints did you have to smoke to come up with that whole concept?
oh man, it was I think back then it wasn't even joints, it was probably bongs, college days.
Yeah, sounds about right. Oh shit, that's amazing. But that logo's dope. Did you design that and like do
Yeah,
that yourself? Yeah, that's
yeah.
cool. Oh, it
Yeah,
looks
thanks,
unreal.
man.
Like I remember seeing a few posts and stuff like the back. You got that logo big on the back of your truck, like on the back window, and then you did like a pretty. Do you still have that same like truck and boat wrap where everything's like white, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
faded in a little bit, and it's got like that color change
Yeah.
effect to it and everything?
Yeah, still I
Oh,
peeled it
so
off the
sick.
truck, but it's still on the boat.
Oh, why'd you take it off the truck?
It was
It looks
like
so good.
it was peeling and it just caught me in a
Ah,
mood. It got me in a mood one day and I just started peeling it off and I didn't stop.
yeah.
So,
Damn. Well, you got to
yeah.
get that back on, because didn't it like the truck and boat when you had it like the boat trailered to the truck, it kind of like the wrap like continued into
Yeah,
the
it
boat
was
or
wild
something?
looking. It was so sick. It
Yeah.
was like it was all 3M color shift and
Yeah. Yeah.
we shifted like from the truck to the boat. It shifted like blue green like Featherwick like colors over matte
Yeah.
black. So it was so
Sick.
wild. I had never seen a rap like that.
Yeah.
Um,
No, well, it just goes back to like your creative mind and how like unique you think about things. And from what I've seen, man, like you have one of the most like unique minds in this like creative world and outdoors
Thanks, man.
fishing industry and stuff.
High praise.
It's cool to see just like whether it's the music you use or like how you put little short form videos together or some of the ads you're creating these days. And you got like a weird interesting mind that is
Yeah,
you
I
can
feel
tell
that.
like just through like what you put out how like you think differently. Where does that come from? Have you just always been like that?
I guess my wife thinks I'm a weirdo, so it must be right. But yeah, I don't know. I, to be honest with you, it's pretty raw. Like, I just,
Mm-hmm.
like you, I sit in front of the editing program and I try to zone into this like weird hemisphere of my brain that like speaks through me, and I'll just mess around with stuff on the program until things
Mm.
start coming together and then polish it from there. But it's always like, I don't know, I've always loved music too. Like music was a huge, obviously everybody loves music, but I did love music. I love finding music, finding artists and old music and vintage music, and I love the how like surf and snow and skate films weren't afraid to put some really weird sound environments into their stuff, and I guess that did influence me. Like the weirder the better, really. Like I love there's this one, oh my God, what is it called? I feel like it's called Capture. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a 2016 surf film. And in that time, for the 2 years from 2016 to 2018, it was like high art directors coming in to do surf films. And they were doing like super sick cinematic pieces, like between like 2 minute segments of like ripping,
Okay,
but
cool. Yeah.
you'd have the dopest structure ever. And it captivated me.
Mm.
And I just wanted to make something like that. It would be like it the transitions, like the segments they would use between announcing like the pros for them, the surf team,
Yeah.
were like so abstract and so like I don't want to, I guess where it comes from for me is was poetry. It's like where you don't want to spoon I don't want to spoon feed somebody what I'm trying to tell them. Like
Mm.
I don't think I'm the best creative to do like a instructional fishing video, you know? But if you want, if somebody said like we want to feel what it is to go flipping,
Mm.
like I'd rather make like a film that is like all environmental sound with like just all of, yeah. I don't want to spoon feed what it is. I want to keep something concealed to where like I don't know, it's like it's not the mystery of it, but there's like I'd rather somebody feel something than like say, okay, here it is.
Yeah.
I do appreciate both worlds though. So for growth for me personally, I've had to do a lot more long form stuff lately where it's like a narrative based. And I've felt a lot of growth in the last year or two mixing that abstract portion that I have like, that's my bread and butter basically.
Yeah.
But refining my like interviews, my lighting, my like narrative, my voiceover structure, my flow, my sound design recently, like those things are so powerful to put the full picture together. Like I'm happy that I spent years like crafting this like abstract, style because it's been really fun to like mix in the more refined approach. Like you do a
Mm-hmm.
great job. You do a great job with Lee's
Thank you.
stuff. Like
Thank you.
that's the stuff I wasn't good at,
Mm.
So over the last 2 years I've been doing all these like week-long shoots in destinations around anglers, and it has to be somewhat of like a narrative with
Yeah.
like mic audio and stuff like that. So I've like by necessity had to improve. And now to be able to make a 30-second ad off of a long form and bring that abstract style in, but bring in the voiceover and everything. It's been like a game changer lately. So
Yeah, that's huge. So have you been doing more like you said you'd been doing some more narrative based projects and stuff. Is it
yeah,
more like like short film type of stuff where
yeah.
you're telling a story about a certain individual?
It's been like if you go on Sims YouTube and look at the
Yeah.
Destination series,
Okay.
we dropped Skeena so far. It's a river in British Columbia, and
Okay, yeah.
it was like a band of like 5 anglers for like a week on the Skeena and the surrounding tributaries, and you're just dropped in and filming. It's like there's no, you can't really plan a shot list too much out when you get dropped in Alaska or,
Yeah.
off a float plane. It's like it's all run and gun.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, that's been the formula for the past like 4 shoots I've been on. I'm about to
Dude,
go to
that's my
Scotland too. I can't wait for that.
what
Yeah.
damn. Like same type of idea?
Yeah, it's another Sims destination piece in Scotland, but this feels
Damn.
like the opus of my career this time because first of all, it's Scotland, and to
Mm.
me, the scenery is just going to be dark and dramatic,
Yeah,
and like,
it feeds into your vibes.
oh yeah, and the whole premise of it is like we're floating down rivers that have never been floated in Scotland
Mm.
for.
That's bad.
I think they're catching steelhead there. I'm not the utmost expert on trout, but some kind of crazy trout over there.
Yeah. Man, that that right there is exactly the type of work that I enjoy the most. Just like documentary style, you're
Yeah,
dropped into someone's life or a group of people's lives, and you just gotta capture what's in the moment. But
it's great.
on dude, it's to me, it's like it's so raw, it's real.
I think they call it
There's
verite or something like that.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
verite documentary style films is like
Yeah.
my jam.
Have you
I can't
seen
get
the
enough
Vice
of it.
Media stuff?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like that stuff to me is like
Yeah,
captivating and riveting, and that's like verite mastered. Like the way
yeah.
they interview and everything. It's inspiring, and I know you. I could hear the excitement in your voice when you talk about like going on these things, and I get so nervous and like
Mm,
I become such a mess with my gear. Like my gear is still sprawled out on my desk all around me right now from Mexico. We just got back a
mm.
couple of weeks ago. But it's so exciting. It's like it's still such an adventure spirit that you scratch an itch and then you get to be the one to like craft this story. You're making somebody like Lee's career, you're immortalizing them. It's like
Yeah,
it's for their kids to watch 20 years from now of dad in his prime.
that's
It's
gonna
like
be a
it's such a
cool
deep
part.
thing.
That's gonna be a cool part of it. Damn. Okay, there's so many little nuggets here. I want to write a couple things. There's
Yeah,
so
do
many
your
things.
thing.
There's so many things I want to explore. Like for example, um, when you're on those type of shoots, do you find creatively you work the best when you're completely immersed in an environment like that where you're on a trip, you're away from home, you're dropped into this group of people that you're capturing. Do you find because I know for me creatively, that's where I do like my best work, even though it's also very tough because you're away from home, you're away from the kids, you're away from the wife. Um, but all of a sudden like when you're in that environment and nothing else matters and you're ingrained with that group of people and you're a part of what they got going on, to me that's like the ultimate like way to get into that creative zone. Do you find the same thing and kind of how it produces some of your best work maybe?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's there's like a gremlin that comes out when you get on.
Yeah,
It's not me. It's not dad at home anymore. It's like it's Bud. Bud's
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Let's have some fun.
yeah. What so on those types of like documentary style shoots that you've been doing, what kind of like pre-production work? Obviously, like you said, it's next to impossible to put together like a specific shot list versus like what you would do for more of like an ad campaign for like
Yeah, then you
A
shot
Sims
list them.
product,
Right.
right? But for like the stories type of pieces, do you have like any type of narratives that you work with Sims, for example,
Yeah.
that you're trying to like that lead the story or that navigate what you're doing? Like, what does that
Yeah.
look like?
Like we know the goal coming in. Um, in my case, like with Sims, they have a producer usually on site with me. Um,
Ah, okay, cool.
and so he's like the guide. You know what I mean? Like he's guiding me, hey, let's go shoot this, let's go shoot that. He's got a plan for each day. You really go into it knowing the end vision, which is like
Mm,
I'll just use like Mexico for an example.
yeah,
You go in for a week and you know the itinerary of like, okay, tomorrow we're going to be offshore for marlin. The next day we're going to be in the mangroves, on a small boat. The next day we're going to be wading the beach. So as a creator, like the night before, I'm charging all my batteries. Like I'm just like thinking about that next environment and capturing every piece of it that you can, slowing down in the moments, slowing the crew down in the moments where you feel like the light is like killer or like
yep.
the scene is just set, and I focus on those like micro scenes when I'm like in it, in the golden hours and blue light,
Mm,
because ultimately that's really the stuff that plays for me. um the midday stuff is tough unless you're just doing documentary stuff, but I just
yeah,
hate it. I hate seeing bright light in my
yeah,
edits. I don't know what it is, but it's like, get me out of this bright light.
yeah. Is there any type of so do you mentioned like these probably have a lot of like interview, sit down interview type
Yeah.
of scenarios, right? So are all those questions thought through, ran over with the producer? Are you coming up with those questions, or is it the producer from Sims coming up with those
Yeah.
questions?
We
How does
kind of
that work?
I've always found, like, I'll tell you, you really learn. I'm sure you've had the same experience where the more you interview people, the better you get at knowing what is gonna be
Oh yeah.
good and what isn't. Like
Yep.
you're just like hearing it and you're like, okay, got it, got it, got it. I
Mm-hmm.
try to keep it now so conversational because I
Mm.
want the body language of the person being interviewed to be like engaging instead of
Yep.
like interrogation. So we usually have around, I pick like a good spot, run two cameras, and
Mm-hmm.
like try to have like a roundtable discussion, with the person that we're interviewing. And Rex will ask questions, the producer from Sims,
Yep.
and it might trigger a thought that I had while the person's answering it, and I'm just like waiting for them to finish the answer to like hit him with like another thought, to get like to play on the line of questioning. And then like if there's a photographer there, at Sims, it's my buddy Darcy. Like sometimes he'll think of something, and you wind up getting these really varied responses that aren't so robotically fed back to you, to where you
Yep.
could like, maybe bring in a little personality in the edit too. So
Yep.
yeah,
Okay. Cool. How have you guys considered in those questions, um, like like trying to find the deeper story rather than just the specific like angling goal that they're working towards? Have you guys really focused maybe like building stronger stories with, okay, maybe you're on this crazy, those anglers are on this crazy adventure in this amazing place, but they're leaving their kid behind who was whatever, like just born, and there's like that whole battle in their head. Like, have you guys figured out a
yeah,
way to pull through those types of story pieces out?
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because I just 2 days ago wrapped an edit for Sims. It's called Destination Podium, and it was shot over several Elite Series events with Brandon Palaniuk. And one
Oh
of
yeah.
I just you have, the edit is still just takes over your brain when you're into
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he had missed one of the births of his kids,
Yeah.
and Kyle was there to film
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
experience that. And I'm getting footage from Kyle to put this edit together and to sit there and see it's a wild thing for somebody like Kyle to be there to capture that and
Yeah.
not knowing like to film it or not, but to basically disconnect yourself from being a human being and just be a camera. It's
Yeah.
wild. Like the footage is so heavy. But
Mhm.
but yeah, of course. So we interviewed Brandon over several times for this piece throughout different times of the year, and through that becomes a line of questioning. Like it's not about like any of that. Basically, it's all just metaphorical and like feelings and like
Yeah.
the feeling of winning is what Brandon says. It's not like the tactics and techniques that brought him to that win. It's like he's not chasing the hardware. He's chasing like this like feeling.
Yeah.
So when you lead a story to make a film with that as the premise, everything is going to be deep.
Yeah.
It's like you can't avoid it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's something I'm trying to get better with is getting past like the surface level storylines that everyone is working towards. Like for
Right,
the
right.
guys fishing, for example, every single tournament, you ask them what's the goal. They want to win the tournament. Of course it is. So it's like trying to get deeper and bring
I
those
think
like
you've done it because, and
a
I'll
little.
use a specific
It's something I've
example.
been working towards for
You've,
sure.
I'll use an example because sometimes it's powerful to have a tertiary like
Mm,
perspective.
mm-hmm.
But I remember seeing an ad that you did for Lee, where it was like this, gritty song in the background, and there was no speaking from Lee. It was just him going through the motions in the morning, and like just you could almost feel just by looking at his face, like you hit him with a side profile a couple of
Mm,
times in that low light in the morning, and I felt that anticipation, like
mm.
that pent up grittiness of like I'm about to go stomp everybody out there because he
Yeah,
carries that energy. I love that
yeah,
about
for
him,
sure.
and you have to
No,
be like that.
yeah, no, it's interesting. Like the storytelling stuff is definitely something that I've been trying to work towards, and why I was asking about that kind of like second storyline. That's not like what everyone would think about for like the
Mm-hmm.
physical goal. It's something I picked up from like Mark Bone and the guys at Art of
AOD.
Documentary.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like I'm not like a member or anything, and I'd like to drop some money and get all the courses and stuff, but just like watching Mark's videos and kind of him hinting towards those concepts
yeah.
has stuck
I
with.
do the same thing. I follow them as well.
Yeah, so like that those concepts have really stuck with me and has always been something in like whether it's in pre-production or just like out in the field when I'm putting like out in the real world doing the shooting and trying to come up with storylines and stuff. It's something I'm like actively focusing on because those like deeper inner like thoughts and stories that are in there are what makes everyone unique and special and like that's what differentiates one person from another. They might be going towards the same goal, but this guy's motivated by different things than this guy over here, and everyone's got battles they're fighting in their head. Everyone's got something different that they're dealing with.
That's right.
So trying to pull that out is something that I've been very conscious on trying to do. So I appreciate you even like noticing that a little bit.
Oh, of course. No, I think you've been crushing it, man.
Yeah,
And I
thank you.
love Lee. I've always loved Lee, so it's
Yeah,
easy for me to love what I watch. But
yeah.
you know
No,
what I
it's
really to compliment you further is I never got an FPV, or I have like four FPV drones. But
mm,
the reason why I never put them in a single shot in any of my films is because I feel like it starts to make the viewer too aware of like the camera. And I think you do a great job
yeah,
of immersing the viewer into the Lee's like his whole ethos.
yeah,
You're not distracting the viewer with like crazy transitions and edits. And as me, that's
yeah.
that's growth that I had to go through in the
Mm,
early, like 10 years ago when I was just too flashy. But I really feel like the strongest documentary verite work
Yep.
is that like flow, that edit structure where you let some things roast, let some
Yep.
things marinate, like then let the scene speak to you, like pull your own feelings from just
Yep.
a wide shot that's
Yep.
held for 15 seconds. You know,
Yep.
it's like I love that growth as well
Yep.
in like documentary style editing is like
Yep.
learning when to shut your editing down, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And part of that on my end is because I haven't taken the time to learn a lot of crazy editing techniques and stuff. But at the same time, it has been very intentional because when I do look at Netflix documentaries or documentaries in the past that have won awards and stuff, like they're not always shot. First of all, they're not always shot on the crazy, like most expensive cameras out there.
Right.
The editing styles of them are very cut and dry. Like it's simple
Yeah.
cuts. It's story
Power
forward,
of the story.
narrative based. Yeah, they might be holding shots for a couple minutes. Like who knows? Like it's like that's what I'm focusing on is trying to build in the longer form stuff, trying to build like these like little films and stuff that could stand the test of time and
Yeah.
not just be seen as like, oh, there's like a little editing
You
fad that
can't
he
make it too
incorporated at.
personal.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
So it
you need to be
yeah,
evergreen. They need to, yeah, I
exactly.
totally agree with you.
Yeah. No, that's been huge and a good guide for me when because it's tough at the same time, right? Like you go on Instagram, you're just inundated every day with like,
Yeah.
man, like
It's the opposite.
bat badass edit, like whoa, that's that technique, like this is crazy, all this stuff. And for certain scenarios, yes, it's either needed or it works or whatever. But
Good for
I try to
sizzlers.
exactly like, but for me, I try to kind of zone a lot of that out and just focus on what's important and what I'm
Yeah.
put together and just
It's such an
sticking it.
honor. It's such an honor to the subject.
Yeah,
Like to not distract from their pursuit. And
yeah,
yeah, I think it's a really mature thing to edit in that way.
yeah, yeah,
Like just to use a specific example from that last film I edited with Brandon,
yep,
I'm like trying to craft an intro that will captivate as many people as possible to keep watching this like 16-minute film.
mm,
And there's a shot in the first like minute and a half where I showed up to like this campground where Brandon was sleeping in the back of his truck, and I got there like super early,
mm,
like just ungodly hour. I might not have even went to sleep the night before, but I set up like a time lapse with a super high ISO on the Sony and
mm,
just put it on a picnic bench outside of like where his truck and boat were. And I
yeah.
just sat there in my own silence and waited until he like it's not it's a little creepy, I guess, but not
Dude, I love
because
this.
dude, the shot it goes from like stars in the sky to like the sun and that blue light just starts to like rise over the horizon. So you see like the silhouette of the trees, and then
Yeah,
you see like this a little bit of the boat and truck. And the best part is I shot it 24 frame or 23:9:8 with sound. So
yeah.
the sound of the crickets or the
Oh,
spring peepers,
yeah.
you know that up north sound, you live up
Oh,
there
yeah.
on
Yeah,
the St. It was at the St. Lawrence,
yeah,
and it's like this audible like sound that makes me love up north. It's
yeah,
you only hear it up there in the morning. It's like this chorus,
yeah.
and to see like the scene change and like the blue light, and then all of a sudden the back of the truck like pops open and he just like crawls out with the
That's
light on.
awesome.
I'm like, so much of my editing brain wants to like get this over with. Here's the shot I shot. Let's
Yeah,
go. I want to show you this other shot I shot at the boat ramp. I want to show you this other cool shot I got of this.
yeah,
For me to just shut myself down and let that shot roast
mm,
does so much more justice to like the
yeah,
narrative in a documentary.
yeah.
So,
No,
so fun.
that's amazing. And like it leaves room for interpretation from like the audience too. Like you said, you don't want to be spoon feeding them stuff, but at the same time, like a shot like that kind of does both. Like it's spoon feeding a little bit on his dedication to it and all this stuff, but at the same time, you
Right.
can kind of like let the viewer think what they want to think about him and what his situation is and what how he's going about his work and everything. So that's awesome. When's that coming out? I want to see that. It
It's
looks
not it's not approved yet. I still have to make changes to
damn.
it. You know, it's
All right.
like you go back and forth for a while, but I'm for a first draft, which was Friday.
Yeah,
I put it in the frame, and it got like better reviews than most on a first draft. So I'm excited.
that's good.
Maybe it'll be done in a few, week or two, hopefully, and it'll be out February, March, maybe. We'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that clip stays in there and doesn't get
No, that one's
noted
staying.
out.
I think
Yeah, good.
that one's gonna stay. It's just what needs to change is some flow and some structure.
Yeah,
It doesn't always make sense to introduce additional characters when the whole story is driven by an interview from a single person. You know what I mean? It's like,
mm-hmm.
so I think I have an element in there that is perhaps it's sick shots, but it's distracting from the
Yeah,
story. And that's really the
yeah,
battle is like, as the cameraman is like, you fall in love. I think AOD is the people that said it. The first
yeah,
thing you do is go in there and your favorite shot, you just delete it
yeah,
because you have to like disconnect yourself from
yeah,
shots you love because sometimes they don't make any sense in the edit.
yeah. 100%. And I'm glad you touched on that because that's one thing we were just talking about that's kind of sparked a question in my head of like, obviously you're putting together some amazing shots, I'd imagine, throughout a day. You get back in the edit, you fall in love with like, oh, damn, look at this sunrise shot, or look at
Totally.
this close up of this and that and whatever. There's so much gold that you can put into an edit, especially like some long form stuff where you're there for a friggin' week or whatever. Like the amount of
Totally.
gold that you can mine out of there is unreal. But how do you go about kind of killing your babies in a sense and like and having to give up some of that really good looking stuff that to you might feel good putting it
Yeah.
in there, but it might not fit with what they're talking about, for example.
And
And
I think the best thing too, for a guy like you or for a guy like me, is to be a pleasure to somebody who's, trying to work with you on an edit. Like
yeah,
not fighting and not being emotionally connected to like pieces you love but
yeah,
don't make sense. And it's like the faster you could just adapt and evolve and like give people what they want, the better off,
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. That's been one thing I've tried to be like objective in my edits where like I'll look through a scene that I just cut. I'll go downstairs, like
Yeah,
kind of get
walk
off
away.
my, yeah, walk away for a little bit and come back and like replay it and be like, okay, well, this like little segment that might be funny or whatever, it doesn't like feed into the storyline that I was building in the couple scenes before that, and it like doesn't really fit, but
Hmm.
it has some funny moments maybe and some cool like B-roll that I slapped on top of it, but in the end it's not really making any sense and it just added another 5 minutes to my edit. So sometimes like I'll just select all and delete that scene and like just be
Hmm.
done with it. um YouTube's good for that because a lot of those times you can just keep it in there and whatever,
Yeah.
but at the same time like I've tried to be very intentional in edits these days and cutting a lot of the fluff or stuff that's not really to the point. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's a skill though, like that you got to kind of craft over the over some years of getting into it. Because at first, like I would never have done that. Like I would just keep everything that I selfishly thought looked or sounded good,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
growth.
tough to, yeah, for sure. For okay, it's funny. I had a whole section to start out with on family, and we've gone down a whole different path, but I love it. Um, okay, so you kind of explained Featherwick to me. So like what's what's the future look like for what you want to build there? Like going into 2025, did you do any vision
Yeah.
boards or sitting down and like goal setting and planning out where you want to take what you're doing personally and kind of where you want Featherwick to go.
Yeah, I mean, I can never give you like a best and final answer for that
Yeah,
because
of course.
I still don't want to. I don't know. I'm trying to leave myself open to all opportunities. But what I know right now and what my focus is on is this like studio work,
Mm,
like the last Sims ad that we did for the Pro Dry.
yep.
Um, that fired me up beyond compare because that is a very planned out type of shoot that
Mm,
I just play a small role in as creative director. But to see, to discuss and collaborate with a 14 person team,
damn.
it taught me a really big lesson in this industry. And I started out, I played baseball. I came into the film side and the industry like super competitive. Like
Mm,
I just had this like chip on my shoulder, like I needed to be the best. And I think it was a big mistake because, the way to grow is through collaboration. And, you know, getting 10 years into filmmaking and losing, like being at a point where I was really happy where I was at, there was there was nothing left to do other than collaborate and try to grow
mm,
to that next level. So I really am fortunate and I feel grateful to have met people like Miguel Corteo, who has been more of a partner with me lately than anything else in getting like my production level from verite run and gun adventure filmmaking to like high end studio brand work. You know,
mm-hmm.
so I really, from a business perspective, want to dive all in on trying to sign up more clients for that studio type treatment because I think it plays well on social, plays well on pre rolls and all these different ad entities. I don't
Yep.
think it's going away, and I feel like excited about it because I feel like I have the right like I don't know creative buildup for 30-second ads for it like in a studio when
Yep.
if you give me like a vacant space, I'll give you like I could spit out 5 or 10 different like directions and then polish it from there. It's never been
Yeah.
hard for me to just like dream up different things.
Yeah.
So that excites me to do more for more brands, and that's the tough thing in our industry is necessarily like taking a ad like that pro dry ad and then getting it seen and getting to the table with other brands to try to
Yep.
get that conversation started. Like that's the challenge. That's that like window I'm in right now. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I have this ad. I know it could play for anybody, any brand.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Yep.
how do I get to the table? And that's the touchy thing. Like you just gotta have faith, like, and doors just open on their own
Yeah.
sometimes. It's wild. It just happens in my life over and over again. When
Yep.
things are like rock bottom or I don't know where to go, it's like you get a phone call or an email, and it's like the next thing just keeps you rolling, you know?
Yep. Dude, it's it's funny you mentioned that. I feel the exact same. It's
Mm-hmm.
wild. Where like you're coming into what in your head you thought was going to be an off season, and you're in the back of your head you might be like, how am I going to pay my bills over the like I kind of got things figured out, but it'd be nice if something came up, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you get like a phone call or something,
Comes
and
up.
a new project comes up, and that would never have happened if you made the jump and you're in that world. It's crazy how things just kind of fall into place.
Yeah.
Obviously, you gotta be good enough and have the work out there to be
Right.
seen, and have the relationships to have those opportunities come up. But it's wild how that just it can happen.
It is
But
wild. It's like the power of positivity
yeah,
sometimes really makes
yeah.
a difference.
Okay, before I forget, so for that Sims Pro Dryad, I had like a whole set of questions here, but one that just came to mind is like for an ad like that. So that ad that you put together had a big crew. To me, that like yell that screams like dollar signs. So higher quality production like that, more like your traditional advertising route, studio stuff, like really polished, really well done, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, how how did that project come about? Was that something that you dreamed up, put a pitch deck together, and pitched to Sims, and then had to convince
Nothing,
them?
nothing really ever works out like that. When things work out magically, like when you win a tournament and catch 40 pounds on top water in the last 20 minutes or whatever, like
Yeah,
I was on a shoot, and I'll just be completely transparent because this is how life works.
yeah,
But I was on a shoot with Miguel, for another brand in Alabama,
mm-hmm,
and it just because he has a network and we're in this like collaborative spirit. One of his people had a friend who had a motion control robot, like a crane arm, a bolt,
yeah, yeah,
um, and he needed to do spec work for his portfolio so that he could be hired in his
nice,
local area, by
yeah,
different production companies. So my literal dream, like in 2008 or whatever, is when I caught wind of like these motion control robots. And I was
yeah,
like, one day I just like want to buy one. Like, do I buy one? Do I pay a tech and become like this studio that is capable of this? Well, now all of a sudden, over a burger in an airport, Miguel just drops this like, hey, I have a friend has a robot, needs to do a spec ed. And so now I just got the ability to have a crane operator, the software, the bot, the install, and everything for nothing, for free.
yeah. That's
So
wild.
that took the dollar signs. It still cost a ton of money, even taking that off, because then there's a production truck that shows up it's a box truck full of lighting and like
Wow.
four guys just ready to work at 5:30 in the morning. And this was my first experience, my first exposure to like a larger scale production. So I was
Yep.
mind blown the entire
Yep.
time because selfishly I had always thought like you don't need 14-man crews. I could go do this with two guys, like in
Hmm.
my basement. But it's not the case at all. Like these guys are on the ceiling on we had to get a scissor lift just to get to the ceiling to like take black tape and like tape off white pipes, to like
Jeez.
completely void out this like abandoned space in
Yep.
Tampa, in downtown Tampa. So you had this massive crew there. They're brooming, they're leaf blowing. There's Dunkin' Donuts set up at the table. There's guys that are there just to rig the cameras and stuff. Like so they've got camera bodies sitting over there. They're rigging up everything, getting monitors ready for me. All of a sudden, there's a chair and there's a big iPad in front of me with a live feed, and I'm supposed to like, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing.
That's
But at the
crazy.
end of the day, Miguel and I collaborated on a shot list, and all these people came together under a very discounted rate
Yep.
as a spec ad. And to anybody watching this podcast that, really wants a way to earn your space, earn your shot, even is to
Hmm.
just be willing to get to that point once a year where you hit a double with a spec ad or you do a
Yep.
speculative ad for somebody that can lead you to that next conversation, even if it's 5 years down the road. They'll remember you if you're at iCast and you made a spec ad for them a couple of years ago. Now they
Yep.
have another opportunity. There's so much. It's just part of it's not always great to do free work essentially,
Yep. Yep.
but by doing free work, you're able to dictate your creative freedom and your
Yeah. That's
creative
huge.
treatments, your vision.
Yep.
And so that feels amazing, but then you have to have a team that's willing to also put their time in so you could all grow together. But
Yep.
the power of like spec work is that's how I got my first job with Sims,
Yep.
was
Yep.
just by making a
Wow.
spec ad with one of my buddies in Florida. And
Mm.
then it was like a week later I got a phone call.
Jeez. So
So
that whole Pro Dry ad was like complete spec ad. You didn't even consult with Sims about it. You just conjured
we
up this
did.
vision. Oh, you did. Okay.
We did. I because even though we got a discounted rate, it was still like hefty to get just
I was
everyone's just
right.
to get everyone's time taken care of. Like,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
you can't just it's not it's like all we had to build. Miguel built this whole rain rig, you know, like, and it wasn't like a Home Depot rain rig chopped together. He hired like this master carpenter to like rig this like crazy. I guess there's guys that do this, you know, they just dream up like special effects or whatever, but there
Yeah.
was lighting inside of it. Like there was money spent. Um, so I had to talk to Sims. I was ready to kind of front it on my own, but I mean, when you get with a brand that's treated you like family for 5, 6 years, it's like you could be transparent and they're stoked
Yeah.
because they're getting a discount. They're
Yeah.
getting crazy discount on what
And
they would have normally spent to get something
yeah.
like that. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a win-win for everybody. They're happy to take care of the cost, you know.
Yeah.
So
Is that is that something that you think has been missing from the fishing industry? Is like that style of ad piece? Like right now, I feel a little bit of that way, where some of the brand work, even though I don't do much of it, stuff I've seen in the past and stuff that I'm doing now still feels very like everything feels and looks the same. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's you get to the lake, you launch the boat, you drive to your spot, you pull out whatever product you're trying to promote, you're fishing it. Oh, fish catch. Couple cool product shots, hold up a few fish, uh, end with a fucking drone shot or
I
whatever.
know.
Slap a logo at the end and
I
there
know.
you go. You got an ad. It's like,
I
how the hell do we break free from that? But that's that Pro Dry ad for example is like the perfect example. Like, have you been battling with that too?
Yeah, I never, that's what I was trying to get the industry away from when I was just
Mm,
making stuff on my own. I was just, because if, for me, it was like, why do I love bass fishing? I can bring myself down back mentally right now, vividly, to like 10-year-old me,
mm,
hearing that same sound of like frogs at like
yeah,
5:30 in the morning in like blue light and throwing like a pop bar. And that was what I fell in love with. It wasn't like it wasn't it was never like I don't know, it's hard to explain. You know what I mean? It was always the
I
feeling.
get it.
It was more
Yeah,
of like an art. I fell in love with
yeah,
like the being outside, immersed in quietness. Like,
yeah, yeah,
you know, it wasn't all the chronological like fish catch. Yeah, so
yeah,
I try to make the stuff like reflect somewhat of that. Like,
mm,
you know, get back to that feeling of like just quiet, you
yeah.
know.
I
But
like
yeah, it's
that.
tough, man. Like, what do you do? Because that's what everybody wants. They want the fish
Yeah,
catch, they want the boat launch, they want the.
yeah.
But you have to be. I remember I said it in AOD once. Somebody said, like, hey, we're having this problem with this edit. I don't know. It was something like that. And
Mm,
I commented in there and I was like, find a more brave editor." And it
mm,
got like a bunch of like responses and likes. This was like months ago.
yeah,
But what I mean by that is like, so whether the client like doesn't always know what like if they don't see what could exist, they
yeah,
don't really know. It's too scary. It's too much of a risk to go outside of that, you know. So if you're just like, if you have the balls to make a vision like unlike anything anyone has ever seen, but it's rad, then
yeah.
you're stoked and it like triggered this like, you know, it's like you've seen trends go throughout social media. Trends is
Mm,
everything now in filmmaking, and it's like the trend of split screens. Like
yeah,
it went crazy, and then it went, and now it's like not, you know, the algorithm isn't happy with it, so it's like you're constantly like,
yeah.
what's the next, you know, formula or whatever. But I'm gonna give you a secret that I've, you know, found in the last like month or two, and it's following other directors and like other like see what brands like Arc'teryx are doing and like
Yeah.
all these high-end like fashion brands, and they have these production teams and editors that are just brave. Like
Mm.
it looks like they're making spec ads, but they're not because there's so many brave like editors in that space that they've pushed that industry to high art.
Yeah.
And if the same could be done with fishing, but at the end of the day, it's fishing. It's bass
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah.
So there's only so much you could do, but you could play in the worlds within bass fishing and like
Yeah.
comment media a different way. But also, you got to keep it interesting for yourself as an
Yeah.
editor, or else you're not going to want to burn time in the dungeon editing stuff that you're just
Yeah.
like sick of. So get away from that feeling as well,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. But I think the nugget to take there is, and that might even be shit. My like theme for this year is like, how can I evoke feeling in what I'm putting together, and having that mindset going into like pre-production and everything, because I think that's huge. Like fishing for as an industry, there's a lot of feeling there that can be kind of illustrated through video, through sound, through what you're seeing on the screen, and what you're hearing. So that sparks a lot of a lot of ideas when you talked about that. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, okay, for that pro dry ad, how the
Yeah.
hell did you guys get rain falling from that light? I know
Yeah, it
you
was
said,
wild. They ran,
yeah, like
we had a
I didn't.
tube. It was like
It,
a,
it's not.
go
It's
ahead.
something I didn't appreciate until I like was doing some prep work for this, and I was sitting there. I'm like, there's fucking light. Like there's like a light there. There's rain falling from it,
Yeah, it was
and
crazy rig.
like
So
what the
cool. It
like
was
how did
like
that come
just a
together?
wild, it was just a wild rain rig that this guy, this Florida man, like just
Yeah,
leave it to a Florida man to, you know, Miguel had tasked this guy with, hey, we need a, basically what it was is it was like 1 inch piping, like clear tubing, like
mm.
snaked like radiant floor, like radiant heat in
Yep,
a floor.
yep,
And it was
yep,
in this panel, this box panel of plywood
yep,
that was painted like matte black.
yep.
And then on the inside there was like the tubing was like here, and then
Mm.
above the tubing was like bars.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
when he flipped the switch on the valve, and we'd be like, "All right, cue the rain," and then we'd have like the model Ricky standing there just like in the pro dry, and you'd had this robot like just diving in on a track as
That's
it's like
crazy.
rain falling from it. Was a wild scene,
Yeah.
absolutely wild.
Oh
Such a
man,
cool rig,
that's
and
so
just
sick.
you couldn't get the water, like the shot, since we're going for a wide shot with like a
Mm.
24 mil, you see the whole place. But
Yeah.
that's what set our edit apart. And it was really, I have to just give props to Miguel again, as from a DP perspective, because there's so many badass production companies doing ads, like Live It Film for
Yeah.
AFCO did one,
Yeah.
and we were looking at all, being inspired and looking at all these different ads, but the one thing that we thought could separate us in the pack was we could get this wide shot and like do repeatable motion on this wide shot. But in order to do that, you couldn't see any of the hose that
Yeah.
like fed
Oh
the
yeah.
rain rig.
Yeah.
So for hours, I'm talking like 3 4 hours, dudes are sweating. There's no AC in here. They're like on top in the ceiling, just concealing everything for this one wide shot that plays for three
Jeez.
seconds. There's so much work behind, you know, the stuff that it was just wild. And I just have to say, like, I appreciate still to this day all those guys putting the time in for
Yeah.
that, because at the end of the day, that's the proudest work, my proudest work,
Yeah.
to up to this point in my career. I never thought I would be able to sit in a room like that with that team.
Yeah.
So it was an
Oh,
honor.
so sick. Did you guys shoot any like behind the scenes stuff on that? That would be so
Yeah, we
interesting to
do.
see.
We did.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank God. Because I think honestly, from like a client perspective, like you guys exposing what went into a shoot like that,
totally agree.
would really like help the
It
cause when you
it
go
justifies the price.
like so much, man. Because I mean, obviously, a lot of the brands that you'd be doing stuff like that for would hopefully understand that to a certain extent. But for the most part, some people might see that and be very uneducated and just think, oh, yeah, he was just walking around with a camera doing some cool like
Yeah.
movements. And yeah, I just bought a light from wherever and put some like a fucking shower head or something on top of him. And away you
Younger
go.
me, younger me
Like,
would have saw that and been like, they charged you
yeah,
how much for that? Oh, I'll do it for $500.
exactly,
And
man.
that's
Yeah,
like the growth, the maturing is
yeah,
realizing what goes into the premium next level look. Like
yeah,
it takes help. It takes a team. It takes like
yeah,
people in your corner, you know what I mean? Like a boxer
yeah,
isn't showing up to the match like ready to go. He's got guys in his corner, like
yeah,
that's how you grow is just teaming up.
yeah. So the whole teaming up aspect of things. So I'm probably where you've been in the last like number of years, where I'm all about the whole like one man band thing right now, and just taking on projects that can, one, pay my bills, and two, just keep me on my own, doing my own thing, and not having to manage anybody, and kind of live that life. So when did you kind of, I don't know how to ask this, like make that realization, or kind of like have that mindset shift of like, okay, I think
Well,
it
it
might be
gets to a point.
time to get into this, like where I'm expanding my team
Yeah.
personally or collaborating with people.
It gets to a point where you have too much work
Yeah,
to do it all yourself. And
yeah,
that's where it got for me maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
yeah,
I didn't want to deny clients.
yeah,
And if I had, opportunities are so rare. If
mm,
somebody is like I can take on full-time post-production myself, but I can't always physically go shoot everything myself, and
yeah,
vice versa sometimes.
yeah,
So through, years of trial and error, you just network, and I was lucky enough to find a like-minded editor to
mm,
where I could then take on more clients and not have like a team, like an office or anything like that, but just like
yeah,
have some people to lean on to go get galleries of stills, photographers,
yeah,
and lean on another shooter to go get shots so I can, deliver edits to clients. And
yeah,
so that's where I got to, because I also, like I said in the beginning, it's a necessity. Like with 5 kids, I have to keep my foot so on the gas. It's stressful sometimes, to be honest with you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
if I was just like a bachelor, I'd be like chilling right now. I'd probably still be in
mm,
Mexico, catching marlin. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I have to like you got to take everything you could get while still ensuring like the brand's quality. Like I
yeah,
don't ever want to desaturate my
yeah,
quality, but at the
yeah,
same time it's like you got to try to run a business.
yeah. I think that's the realization that I've had over the last 2 years is, like, for example, I'm probably going to talk to Lee this week and break down like what the goals are this season for like release schedule of episodes, for example. Like, things got backed up like crazy this year, and like we're putting out the last tournament of the year tonight.
Yeah,
So we've kind of, you either play the relevancy game and try to get stuff out as soon as events happen, for example, or you play the other side of it where
a year
you have
later.
months. Yeah, you have a year later, or many months in between, where the like fishing excitement's starting to ramp up now this time of year and all that. So if we want to play the relevancy game, it's like, okay, I got to get an editor in here and be able to pass off projects, because if I look at my schedule over there, I'm gone for weeks at a time,
Yeah, yeah.
with only 5, 6, 7, maybe a week and a half of days in between events. Then I'm shipping off to the next one. I can't, to be at the level of like
It's not
production
realistic.
that
It's
I
not
want to put
realistic.
out. It's not
Yeah.
realistic to get home after just shooting for 2 weeks in a row,
You can't even be
grinding.
with the family. You gotta lock in. And
Exactly. So
I'll tell
like,
you, it's no easy task editing 45-minute films. Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
takes weeks. It takes weeks of no
yeah.
talking to anybody.
To do it right.
Yeah.
um, so I've kind of made that realization is like, all right, like I think it might be time to really work with somebody and be able to stay relevant with those episodes, get that pumped out, and also free up my time and stress too. Because dude, it's stressful. Like when you got stuff that have all of a sudden you have hard drives full of client work or that start to stack up, and I
So
think we've
much. So
it
heavy. The
it's
responsibility.
it's stressful and like obviously if you work with clients and you have your deliverable dates set out for when you're going to be delivering things, that part is all good, but all of a sudden you have a big queue of shit that you got to get done, but you're out on a shoot and that's not getting done while you're gone for a week or
Yeah.
two at a time.
Can't
So
happen.
that can't happen.
It,
And
it it puts you in a it could put you in a really I've done it. I've
yeah,
lived it. I've burned
yeah,
my candle at both ends, like,
yeah,
and learned the hard way of like what you can and can't do.
yeah,
And the priority has to be keeping your quality up too, because
yeah.
people fell in love with like how you edit Lee. So
Well,
it's
that's
not
yeah,
always going to be easy to find somebody else
yeah,
that's going to reflect that too. So it's just a tough thing, man. It's a really
yeah.
tough thing.
How did that come together for you? Was it just your
Trial and error. Just
right? Like,
send guys out um, on a smaller scale job if you have it,
yeah,
and see what comes back. And
yeah,
then and then if it's great, then you found somebody to add
yeah,
into your network that,
yeah.
but they also have to be in the same mindset. Like,
Mm,
are they hungry? Like,
yeah.
so that's the thing.
For for the group of guys that you've been working with pretty consistently over the last couple of years, um, how do those relationships come about? Maybe we can touch on the whole like
A
networking
lot of it,
aspect of this
yeah, a
deal.
lot of
Like,
it's Featherwick, um, through the Instagram on Featherwick. But I've always been like a people guy, like an
yeah,
in-person guy.
yep,
So I've made an effort to be at ICAST, and
mm,
like every year for the, I don't even know, years now. And it's because when I was on in finance, I had to cold call people all day long,
mm,
from a senior broker who would give me like a deck of index cards. After a while, I was like, these are terrible leads. Let me just talk to people who like I can talk to. So I literally remember looking up Spro because I was like really into frogging back then.
mm-hmm,
And I was like, let me just call Spro and talk to this guy, Sid Reeves, and just see if he's in the market, and
yeah,
maybe we'll talk a little bass fishing. And so I remember calling that guy, but he was like excited and didn't want to invest. But I went outside or something and I was like, can I work for you? Like, I want to be in the industry. Like, I know you don't want to invest, but like, I love Spro. And he was like, listen, just come to iCast. Like, that's all I can tell you is like everybody's there.
yeah,
And, that was like 20-year-old me.
mm,
And I don't think I missed one. I'm going to be 37. So I've been going a long time. And every person I've met physically, it could be 10 years ago, are the people that have given me opportunities 10 years
yeah,
later, or
mm,
people I've met that I'm now collaborating with years later.
yeah,
So it's like you use your 20s to like meet and network, and then everybody like starts to like lean on that network in their 30s, as they're
yeah,
trying to monetize relationships basically,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
And I even remember hearing recently on a podcast, I think it was Nick Bear. I listen to a lot of his stuff. He's in like the performance endurance supplement industry.
Yeah,
And he was talking about how your network that you build in your like 20s and 30s are the people who are going to be those executives
exactly.
when it matters most. So put in the work now to
Yeah,
create those relationships because it'll pay off later down the road. Um,
100%. Yeah.
so that stuck with me, and I'm the same way. Like I try to interact with as many people as I can, and build those like meaningful relationships, and don't ask anything out of it at the beginning. Like
Right.
just
Just be a good
cultivate,
guy. Just be a good
cultivate,
guy.
be
At
a
the end
good
of the day,
person.
people just want to deal, like everybody only lives once, and I think
Yeah,
everyone's aware of their mortality, and
yeah,
they just want to spend their day not being annoyed with the person that they're dealing with.
yeah,
So just be a good guy, and like good things will happen, you know?
yeah. Oh yeah, because there's always more skilled people out there than you in whatever you're doing. But it's the
Yeah,
people that you know personally that are gonna want to work with you because they like you.
that's it.
Like it's
It's
it's so
relationships.
important. So over the years of going to like ICAST and events like that, were you always footing the bill for yourself to get out there, and you just figured out a way how to get a pass?
Hmm.
And what were you doing? Were you reaching out to brands and saying, "Hey, I'm going to be there. Do you need any work done?" Or was it purely a walk around, go to the parties, hang out at the booths, talk to people?
Yeah, the second part of what you
Okay.
said is what is the method I took. I didn't when I would go, I would bring like the some of the original featherweight guys, like my buddy Rick Harris, who's now
Mm.
like a Strike King guy, and Garrett Rockamora, and some,
Yep.
we would all go together, and we would wear a lot of times we'd be wearing the featherweight shirts, and we never pressed anybody. We
Yeah.
just hung out. We tried to help, at the booth, help out at booths of brands that we liked, and we would definitely go to the parties because nobody really is comfortable discussing anything at the show floor.
Yeah.
But like, you play that game a little bit, but a lot of people are just like panicking because there's too many people around
Yeah.
them. So later, at a dinner meeting or like just at a bar, because everybody's bored there at night, that's
Yeah.
when you really find yourself getting around like some circles of people where you could like discuss a little bit about what you got going on. And
Yeah.
nothing ever happens like a week later you're not going to get an email
Of
like,
course.
"Hey,
Yeah.
great to meet you. We need you to come out to the factory like to do this." It's
Yeah.
it's just faith that like if you don't press anybody too hard, they're going to think of you first, like, and
Yeah.
they get in a position to like hire somebody like you, and you're there. You're
Yeah.
just ready to
Yeah.
go, ready to help. But
Yeah.
it's a tough thing though too, because now like I'm in this position where I have this spec ad that I want to show to as many brands as possible. So to get to that next level, there's something to be said to where you have to start fighting for yourself. It's really
Mm.
easy to be the nice guy, I've learned, but
Yeah.
nice guys get burned.
Mm.
I've gotten really cold over the past like 16 months because you have when you get to a certain level, like you have to start fighting for yourself too,
Mm.
because it's really easy for people to take advantage of. They don't see you editing for 20 hours in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
lab right now. It's
Yeah.
like they don't put value to the time when you're not on the water with a camera.
Mm.
So it's so easy for I really feel for all the creators in industries that are like they need the work and they want the work because they love the work. But at the
Hmm.
same time, you get so undervalued that you just start spinning your wheels dry on art. And that's like
Yeah.
a really depressing place to get to.
Yeah.
Like if you ever felt that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I really want to keep fighting for like creators too. Like I don't know what that looks like, but I would love to see like just the general value of what we do kind of like, just be there so
Yeah.
that people can survive off doing stuff like this. But yeah,
What
you gotta fight for yourself also.
what is fighting for yourself look like?
It's like not backing down in negotiations when it comes to proposing what jobs will cost. Like I've put myself in debt several times just by being like a nice guy, just by being a
Mm.
good guy, like not wanting to put the bill in front of somebody for this job because I really just want to make this film or something. But, because I didn't pass forward my flight expense or my fuel expense this time, or, it's a funny thing, like, which is why it's helpful to work just for brands. Um, but I everything can go like this,
Yeah.
especially like if you're on like a retainer deal or something.
Mhm.
Somebody could decide to take your retainer away tomorrow. And
Yeah.
that's what I went through. I went through like a stark realization of how frail like this margin of error is when you have 5 kids and you're doing what we do. And
Yeah.
it's like you depend on income. But why I say you have to fight for yourself is because I think that I was too passive and I'm like too nice of a guy when it comes to business terms. And that is another area of maturing and growth over the past 12 months is like cleaning up the business end because as creatives, like we're very, I'm in a ethereal place in the cosmos, I will admit. 90% of the time, I'd rather just think about creating
Yeah.
stuff than ever look at an invoice or like follow up. You know what I mean? I'm just not that guy. I wish
Yeah.
I was. Um, but getting better at that, you know, is really crucial because it protects you from
Yeah.
it protects your art, you
Yeah.
know. Because at the end of the day, I think you and I both at the core, we just love to we love to create these stories. It's like our
Yeah.
babies when you hit
Yeah.
export and you're proud of
Yeah.
it. And it's
Yeah.
like it sucks to have to monetize that too, but it's that's just is what it is. It's that dance we play.
Yeah.
But
It's a tough spot to find and to strive for, is to be doing work that you absolutely love and you're proud of, and that doesn't feel like work and you're just really passionate about it, and it also pays well.
yeah, yeah,
Like that spot to get to is so hard,
yeah,
and it makes you realize when you start getting projects and working with people that achieve that for you, you got to hold on to them and do whatever you can to
yeah,
stick with them, because
yeah,
it could, like you said, it could go away and all of a sudden you're doing shit that you don't want to be doing, but it's paying the bills, but you're not proud of it, and
careful
it's
trap.
not something.
Yeah.
It's so tough. But I guess so now, like in terms of your mindset shift around how you're approaching business and stuff, like how are you pricing projects nowadays? Have you broken free from like the associating your time or like an hourly rate with this is what it costs? Like how are you going about pricing um,
It's
projects?
yeah, it's a it's really tough because
Everyone does it differently,
every
right?
client is different too. Every
Yeah,
client like
yeah,
I'm not going to price a job for Burberry the same way I would price a
yeah,
job for, like Danny's Bait and
yeah,
Tackle.
yeah.
So
For the
that's
same deliverable.
right. And
Yeah,
the clients that I'm trying to get are as large of a client as possible, like the publicly traded company client. That's my
yeah,
client because that's where I can make contract deals where I don't have
mm,
to itemize anything. I could say we're running a 3-month campaign and you're getting
mm,
X, X, and X out of it. And then I could, make a percentage like any business would charge a fee. Um, but if I'm doing it for Danny's Beat and Tackle, I'm trying to get my day rate. If it's just a 1 day
yeah,
shoot, if if I think I have a day of editing, 8 hours, I'd put a post production day rate on it,
yeah,
and then you could piecemeal kind of like 1 day shoots here and there based on that. But sometimes those smaller like 1 day shoots wind up being like the most work because
mm,
like they just for whatever other reason the smaller clients that's their baby too,
yeah,
and they have all these changes and visions that they want to make to it. But so what I've been doing with those clients is I've been partnering with them and not charging a dollar. If I could swing it, I just wait till my schedule allows. But in using like the Featherwick platform to kind of come in and like do a solid for a company that's also trying to grow,
mm,
like it positions me, it makes me feel better, number one, because I don't want to charge people that really don't have the money, like,
mm,
but want to grow a business. Like I could almost pick and choose. Like I get calls sometimes to do work for little brands like a bag company or something. And I'll hear them out, and I can tell right away if they don't have like a real if it's not a brand, they don't have a marketing budget to work
Yeah.
with. So
Yeah.
if most of the time nowadays I've been still taking on the spirit of like young Bud and just doing free jobs for those type of brands. But everything I do is just trying to get a seat at the table at a larger brand every time, because
Mm,
that person might have a buddy in a
yeah.
hunting at a hunting brand or something. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I try to do some free work throughout the year just to keep my like fingers spread. It sucks. Like I shouldn't be doing that, but it just like is what it is. It's the only way you could like get your name out there sometimes.
Yeah. No, I feel that. That's so I guess what's like the next step in terms of how you're structuring pricing for projects and stuff. So, for example, like I'm still in that mode of like, here's the project, here's the deliverables, here's how long it's going to take, how many days it's going to take to shoot, attribute a day rate to it. Kind of like what you were saying, like day rate for shooting, day rate for editing, kind of put a guesstimate together.
Yeah.
That might be a little under what you really know what it's going to
Yeah, yeah.
take, because you know if you throw this giant ass number out, it's probably not going to get picked up, or you're going to get a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
pushback, and you don't want that, so you price it how in a perfect world it would be, but knowing that it might take double that time, who knows. So that's kind of like the space I'm in right now still for most projects,
Yeah.
where it's very pricing deliverables based on how much time I think it's going to take. And have you, so you said you've kind of moved away from that a little bit. Like what's that next step of
Well,
pricing projects like that you've kind of moved towards, maybe, if
I
that makes any sense at
I
all?
mean, I think my life like revolves now around monthly retainer structure.
Gotcha.
Because I would rather most brands would rather, frankly,
Mm,
have a set amount, um, and I would rather know a set amount I have coming in every month to design my life around. So that really is what has been a key for me to survive is structuring people into an agreement like that.
mm-hmm.
Um, because the value consistency puts on my life rather than waiting 60 to 90 days to get paid because of some instance. Like I used to chase money for years, and that
Yeah.
ultimately led me to getting a position in the fishing industry because I couldn't wait 60 to 90 days to get paid. So I
Yeah.
had to get a paycheck. But in order to like, a year later I was out and I was in on a monthly retainer agreement. And if in my mind, like I have a couple of clients now, but if I can sign up this client, that client, that client to monthly agreements that frankly they're getting crazy discounts on
Yeah.
the versus the deliverable, but I know that I can pay my mortgage
Yeah.
every month. And for that, that takes the cake. Like that allows me to survive and feed my family and do what I love. Like
Mm-hmm.
as long as my monthly number is there.
Yeah.
So rather than like I've never been in any business where at least half the clients don't pay as quickly as you'd want to be paid. Like, and that's what kills you when you're trying to be a grown man, like paying bills. You can't wait 120 days because of the finance department, the lady, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to have that to go to the monthly retainer route for the, verite like style stuff that you and I kind of do
Yeah.
is good for segment A of the business. And then like
Mm-hmm.
there's segment B and C in my mind that now I'm like, okay, segment B is going to be studio work. So now that maybe can be, I don't want my like brand to just be in the fishing. So that's why like I think that studio work under FTH RWK, like it's just smoke and mirrors. But
Yeah.
I think if I can have like more diversification in my services, potentially you can have month X amount of monthly retainers in the verite
Yep.
adventure filmmaking, X amount of monthly retainers for studio work, X amount of monthly retainer for design work,
Yep.
like
Yep.
whether it be Photoshop or whatever it is.
Yep.
So in my mind, like those are other avenues that are immediately available to exploit. How can I how can I go sell that? You
Yep.
know? So
Yep.
we'll see how it all plays out. But I mean,
For those retainers that you've kind of shifted to, is it kind of, do you have like a set amount of deliverables and what those deliverables look like that you're
yeah,
working towards every month? Because I've thought of doing the same thing, and I've done the same thing while mixing in some one-off projects here and there. But
yeah,
what I found with with a lot of the retainer work is like sometimes they need something different, where it's like, okay, I don't know, I could just see a lot of like the scope creep happening, where all of a sudden stuff's shifting in terms of needs and wants, and then all of a sudden you're building way more than you thought you were going to need to build under that retainer, so then
yeah,
you feel like you're getting taken advantage of, and it can spiral out of control. So how do you kind of structure that to where you don't get to that point?
yeah.
Because you know what I
Um,
mean.
well, there's you just obviously there's a fine line you play because the
Yeah.
client has to feel like they're getting a discount, they're getting
Yeah.
value by doing this structure.
Yeah.
So you have to, from my standpoint, I go into it saying, okay, like what is the monthly number that is proposed? I could take that monthly number, then divide it into a day rate or divide it into post production rate. That'll get them X amount of days a month.
Mm,
That's where my fair point is.
right.
Next thing you have to think about is that you may not do shit in for a month. Like they don't need anything.
Mm,
So, but you're still getting paid. So it's like, maybe I will binge out on for them in November for an extended amount of time that month because the other months I didn't, the workload was so light, I barely felt it. So
yeah.
there's that. That's the dichotomy like you
Yeah.
play when it comes to pricing what is expected. But there is a contract, and
Yeah.
that contract is like Overlord, and it'll say X amount of long forms,
Yeah.
X amount of cut downs, whatever it may be, travel included or whatever it is. And as long as you're protected by that like over guiding
Yeah.
thing, then you can have a line item in there that says like if you go beyond this amount of work for this, then we will pay you like, X amount per
Yeah.
hour beyond,
Yeah.
so but the monthly guarantee for what we do in the fishing industry is like it's rare and it's a good thing to
Yeah.
sign people to that because you could design your life around it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're waiting to get paid, you know?
Yeah. No, no, it's huge. So you almost approach it like a consultant for a company would approach it, where you're getting me at this rate every month. Here's up to, like, the deliverables up to
Yeah,
that I will provide for you based on your needs, and you just execute on that throughout the year. And if it's less, gravy. If it starts to become more, you build that into the contract
yeah,
and say anything above this set of deliverables, or whatever you
yeah.
um,
But you play a
contract
game.
out. Yeah.
That's all writing and stuff like that. But like to go back to what we were saying earlier, nobody wants to talk about that stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's got to
Yeah.
be there, but at the end of the day, whoever you deal with, like you got to just be a good guy. And
Yes. Yeah.
if I'm happy and I feel like it's a fair deal, I'm never gonna hassle somebody
Yeah.
for like I just want to the next year on the next contract just remember how much of a pleasure it was and how I didn't
Yeah.
bang you for anything, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like you gotta to be in the locker room,
Yeah.
like, and you're dealing with a bunch of guys, like, you gotta have a certain etiquette in
Y-
business negotiations to where it's like you feel like people feel like you're a great guy and you're a nice guy, but you're looking out for yourself at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it's I think that's like just the dance of life, no matter what industry, no
Oh
matter what
yeah.
business you're in,
Yeah.
everybody's doing the same song and dance and they're just trying their best, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because like I've I've kind of realized that for me, like project based work is where I like to live. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
getting my value out of it. Like I feel like I'm getting the most out of it that I can. It's very cut and dry on what needs to be done and delivered. And at the end of the day, if that's delivered and then some, just to keep people happy, it's like there's no gray area, which I
Yeah.
but at the same time, I'm trying to work with people that I know I have multiple projects like that throughout the year where it's
Yeah, you
where
need a
I'm
pipeline.
like I don't know how some people do it where they're chasing every month like new leads and new small businesses and everything's new one-off projects and then off to the next one. That relationship dies and you're on to I can't do that. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of like in that like middle point of I've tested out the retainer game a little bit and in certain situations I still keep because they're amazing and the work that needs to be done for it is still valuable and I'm getting paid what I need to for it. But then for the majority of it, it's like I like the project based one off one off projects, but I know that there's multiple
Yeah.
that we've line itemed out for the year. So
That's the
yeah, it's
key,
always
really. Like, I think that's the
yeah,
sweet spot for what guys like us are doing. Like, if you could find yourself with a retainer deal, but
yeah,
you're also able to like step up to the T and try to drive one with
yeah,
projects like intermingled and sprinkled throughout the year.
yeah,
That's how you could create like a good
yeah,
solid like income
yeah,
plan for the year. And that's really what I'm doing. I'm just trying to like have the adventure filmmaking stuff kind of like be retainer based and then
mm,
so that it guarantees like me and shooters work for the
yeah,
year. But
yeah,
all project based discussions don't come with that. So like
yeah,
if you want to do like a special like film in between, I'm still like able to like play the angle on that. So I think where you're at and that business model, it succeeds.
yeah,
It's scary because if you lose a retainer, like it's frail, but that's
yeah.
listen, you gotta like in order to be an entrepreneur, like that's how it goes, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, it's love. I love talking about stuff like this because it's interesting how guys set things up. But that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, where can we take this? So, have you diversified how you're like diversified your income at all so you're not relying 100% on video production? Like I saw, for example, you had like I think that place in Vermont or whatever,
Yeah.
like you're renting that out. Like are you
Yeah.
doing anything else
Yeah. Yeah.
to diversify a little bit?
Yeah. So I deal in construction and another hat that I wear a lot on the contract side.
Okay.
Um and the Vermont place was an Airbnb for us. We just recently listed it. Actually, it's two
Okay.
days for sale now, but it's going to wind up being like a good investment. Um, I'm a big believer in like physical investments
Mm,
like that. Like I wish I don't know. I don't want to go down the convo of like crypto and all this, but like I can't think that way. I think in like tactile physical things.
yeah.
So, in order to set your life up for like retirement, like I realize now like I'm only 10 years away from being like 50 on these
Mm.
shoots. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be the old dude like Gandalf the Grey at these elite events, and you guys are gonna be like, "Oh, hey, bud, you going to bed, man?" Like I was like, you just need to have like I'm not trying to tell anything to anybody. I'm just for my world, I try to be diversified so that because
Yeah.
of how frail like the production company stuff is, out of necessity, like I have to have some other eggs in some other baskets. And
Yeah.
with 5 kids too, it's like 4 of them are daughters. Like if they get married, I'm gonna have to pay for every one of their weddings. Like, and it's not saying I can even afford it, not even close to afford something like that right now, but um, I do think it's important to have some feelers out. For me, it's real estate because I can understand like physical investments. You know,
Yeah.
I know if a place is like undervalued. I know if a place like, you know, when it comes to the Vermont place, it was an A-frame. And
Mm,
when you have an A-frame, just as a structure, it plays on human emotion like we do as filmmakers. Like people just like cool things. And
yeah.
like an A-frame, I always wanted an A-frame. I remember when we bought it, I thought it was cheap to get a beautiful A-frame like that. And, you know, we listed it for a lot more than we bought it for in a
Yeah.
terrible market. And it looks like it's going to work out good. But um, yeah, I mean, I try to diversify a little bit, but the construction stuff is good too. Just being like, if you like, you'd be great at this too, and I recommend every filmmaker who does this on their own. Like, you're so project like oriented. I remember when you and I worked together,
Yeah.
and you're very structured and like organized.
Yeah.
And in the construction management world, it's literally just that. Like you
Yeah.
operate off of a spreadsheet. And I know you built your house. Like there's a project manager somewhere
Yeah.
in a trailer that is just knocking things down, and people do very well in that trade. And it's really just simple project management. So
Yeah.
if you could, like, filmmaking and editing is the hardest thing you could possibly do, especially when it comes to fishing and covering fishing.
Yeah.
Every other business is easier, like in
Mm.
every facet, than what we do. Editing fishing, you know?
Yeah, it's wild to think about. But dude, I've had that same realization going into this year. Like me and my wife literally took a week over the holidays to do like life planning. And one of the major things that came up was like, okay, the last 2 years being out on my own has been just figuring it the hell out
Yeah,
and getting my feet under me and just making it work. Like as messy as it's been and will be for a little bit,
yeah,
we're doing it. You know what I mean?
grinding
Like
it.
we're figuring it out. But to create longevity and like to truly survive, it's like okay, like you said, one day we're gonna be old Bud out there
Yep.
needing to drink prune juice and whatever, take pain pills to hold that camera.
Yeah.
That's not gonna last forever. So what do I need to do to kind of set myself up for the future to be able to still, who knows if I'm like need to transition into something else in 10 years, but like what do I need to build now to be able
Work
to keep a
towards
roof
that.
over,
Yeah.
yeah, to keep a roof over my head to support my children and their endeavors and everything. So yeah, I I need to talk to you offline then about the real estate game because that's one thing that I do want to get into.
It is,
And
yeah, is there's definitely some like codes that are cracked in it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it can be lucrative.
yeah. No, it's interesting because if you're young and dumb or whatever, you just think you can do this forever, but you
Oh
can't. And
yeah.
it's important to think about the future. So
Dude,
that's
like just walking through the airport, like for me it's JFK or it's like some awful New York airport. And
yeah,
I have to I have like 2 carry-ons, you know, because I have to bring all my batteries and my
yep,
camera bodies. And I recently got a Pelican, which still sucks because there's no capacity in it.
mm-hmm,
And so I still have this backpack. But before that, it was 2 backpacks, and
yep,
each of them need a team of people to lift it off the security belt. And I'm carrying them both like this, walking like 2 miles to the airport, sweating.
yeah, uh-huh,
And after like 5 years of doing that, I already was like, you know, okay, I need to like make moves towards being like a serious production company because I
yep,
can't physically just rely on my body to like
mm,
carry me like through my 40s, you know, being
yeah,
like an adventure film guy, you know.
yeah,
So that's what really I say everything is like spirited from necessity. It really is. Like as soon as you have a little I constantly do like 5, 10 year plans, 5, 10 year look aheads, and
Yep. Yep.
like it's been such a good help for like just calming myself down in the moment, like stress wise. Like
Yep.
you just have to look at everything with like a 70 to 200, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like just go in a little bit, come out a little bit,
Yeah.
but make it be parfocal and like just keep your focus.
Yeah. I like it. Um, in those like 5 to 10 year plans, do you? Because I was kind of fallen victim to this in the last few years, where I thought I was doing good goal setting, but I really wasn't, because all I was doing was at the beginning of the year setting these goals, whatever they may be, and then they would just sit in a notebook and not get actioned. But this year, like, I've really done a deep dive on like creating action plans for every single goal and breaking it down in like little 3 month sprints to be like, okay, what do I got to get done this month, these next 3 months to get where I want to be for this certain goal. Like, do you do something similar?
I don't like write them down
Mm,
per se, but I constantly have like my mind is a very loud place,
yeah.
and I'm constantly just like scheming and thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I guess that's what carries me. It carries you, and it carries me forward.
Yeah.
Is thinking, is taking. I know that things take steps
Yeah.
to get to them. But I'm old. I'm at
Mm-hmm.
that point now where I'm seasoned enough to know like patience in certain
Yeah.
things. But like you said with the action plans, like I know, I I knew from early on that a lot of the things that stopped people were just like people would have this great idea and then that would be the end of it. It would like fizzle out. The only
Yeah.
like separating factor between human A and B is the next person like executes on that idea, even if it's poorly. Like you listen
Yeah.
to all these CEOs talk about what is the most important quality to have. Like it's the ability to just execute. Like it's not.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong in the moment. Like, but
Yeah.
just the ability to like take something to fruition and see something physical
Yeah.
like is what stops most people. So
Yeah. Yeah. Ideas that haven't been actioned are just dreams.
yeah, yeah,
It's
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 saddest
it's
thing.
when you action them and they can actually become something. So
Yeah,
don't just stay in that dream state, because you're not going to get shit done.
exactly. You just
That's
gotta
how
just go do it. Just go do
yeah,
it. That's like
that, that's how I'm operating from now. Like, that's, I guess, how I've been operating in a sense, but I've really like taken the time to like think about all that and
otherwise you just
really
wind up like with
focus on
regret.
execution. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was
regret's a
my
good
biggest
guide.
that was my biggest thing, just getting into what I'm doing now is, dude, I couldn't live to whatever and be on my deathbed and think like, oh, man,
Regret,
I can't believe I didn't go for it. You know what I
right?
mean? Like, so now it's like, in it and gonna make it work, because at least if it doesn't work out, at least I can say I did it and I felt the pain of it not
Yeah,
working out. But there's not that thing in the back of your head like, ah, what
that's
if?
worse. That's
It's
worse.
so
It's so
much
much
worse.
worse. Yeah, it
So
really
much worse.
is like I feel that mortality like on a daily basis because
Yeah.
I remember speaking like, with loved ones before they pass and every one of them says like your mind doesn't change. You and I are going to be as sharp as we are right now 30 years
Yeah.
from now and it's going to go like this. The only thing
Yeah.
that changes is like the shell.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a travesty to like waste the energy, that and the abilities that you have now, and
Yeah.
regret is the only guide you need,
Yeah.
for your art, for your life, for your business, for everything, you
Yeah.
know.
Um, speaking of regret, like, in stuff you're doing every year for whatever client projects or whatever it may be, like, how important is it to just get into things even though you might not be 100% ready?
What do you mean?
Like, for example, like that spec ad,
Oh yeah.
you had never worked with a big crew before. Like, you must have been so nervous to try to coordinate all that. Like, no one's 100% ready for that, but how important was it for you, and
Yeah,
how good did it feel
I
afterwards
think that's a
to
good
know that you
theme.
did it?
I think it's a great theme because I don't think I was ever ready for any opportunity that I
Huh,
had ever
yeah,
gotten, you know?
yeah,
And it was just the
yeah,
power of being like, I'm gonna figure this out. And
yeah,
then like, yeah, that power, that powerful feeling of satisfaction that you accomplished something at the end. So
yeah.
going into something like that was like, I didn't even think twice. I was excited.
Mm,
Like, because I know like I've never really been anything. I think I've been recently going to the gym, like a new addiction again, and it says
mm-hmm,
something on the wall, and I can apply it to everything. It says if it doesn't change you, it doesn't challenge you. And I
mm-hmm.
was like, wow, like that's so true because
Yeah,
no opportunity that I've ever gotten, I've ever felt like I was like dialed in and ready. I was always nervous and like didn't know if
yeah,
I could pull it off, but that's what creates like you rise to like the occasion. You know,
yeah,
it's like being in a big game. Like, are you the guy that's going to hit the shot at the end or not? You
yeah,
know, that's always the guy I wanted to be.
yeah.
So I
Oh,
was
I love
ready.
that. I love that. It could, like, and that you're so right in that, where it could be applied to anything. Like when I was thinking about making the jump to go out on my own, I had a post-it note that I wrote out this quote that I heard Denzel Washington say in like a speech to a graduating class, where he said, to get something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. And it
Yeah.
kind of speaks to that same thing where if you want to do something, just figure it out. Like, go do
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to change like your circumstances, you got to change what you're doing in order to get. Because if you stick in the same space that you're in, doing the same thing, guess what? The outcome is going to be the same. So
Yeah.
it's a big mindset shift to have to kind of
It's
get what you
crazy.
want.
I saw it in action. And I'll give you
Yeah.
just a quick example.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last tournaments, I was like, I had kids at this point, and I was fishing in the opens, and it was 2018, and I knew that this Lake Champlain tournament, which was the last one in that series that year, was it was coming to be the time where like I can't be like gone fishing all the time with this amount of
Yeah.
kids willingly just like gambling.
Yeah.
And
That's what it is. Yeah.
yeah, like it's gambling, all it is. And I said to myself, like, I was always a guy that finished like in the like finished well, like 30s to 50s out of like 200. That was
Yep.
like I can never break like that top bracket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having this mentality in that tournament where I said what you just said. I was like, if I just keep fishing like the same way, then I can't expect a different circumstance.
Yep.
So for that particular tournament, without getting into like what I did, I applied a completely different mentality and I came in second. I lost by 2 ounces. I almost
No
won.
shit.
I should have won. Um, but it was a completely different circumstance, and the only thing that changed was my like unfaltering like mentality that this was my last tournament I was ever gonna fish, and I
Mm.
had to do something different or else I was gonna regret it, you
Yeah.
know. And it worked. Like,
Yeah.
and that's all I needed to see to like set me off in any direction.
Yeah.
With that amount of like, if you have unwavering faith in something, I think David Lynch just passed away, but he just said this in an interview where he was like, not verbatim, but he was like, if you have unwavering faith
Mm.
and passion in anything, like keep heading that direction step by step, and eventually those things have no like there's no margin to fail anymore, and it like you will it to succeed like
Yeah.
with passion as the fuel, it's like
Yeah.
it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Dude, shit like this fires me up. I love it's so nice to be around guys who and people who are like doing it. I mentioned it in the conversation with Kyle Vendever that's coming out on Wednesday. It's like being around groups of people that are getting after what they love to do and just figuring it out is like so contagious, and it's
It's
pretty cool.
great.
That's
It's
why I'm
like,
that
yeah,
I love it.
he's an inspiring
Like,
guy, and I feel the same
oh
way
yeah,
about you, about all, like, you guys are putting energy in, and people take notice of that. And it's like, if
yeah,
you've ever been golfing with a foursome of, like, people that are scrubs, you probably don't play that good that game. You play with a bunch of scratch handicap guys, all of a sudden you shoot
yeah,
79 or something, it's like
yeah,
you truly like affected by the people you like, the company you keep, you know.
yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. And shit, just like that, we just hit 2 hours. Okay. Uh,
It was easy.
before we go, I know I love it. Before we go, I wanted to ask some selfish dad questions here. So, like, as a father to five kids, like, how are you ensuring that you're spending individual, like, quality time with each child? I only got one right now, but eventually I want multiple.
Yeah.
And that's always been something that's rattled around in my brain is how do you keep those personal relationships and that quality time if you have multiple?
Yeah. I'm sure, like, I don't have all the answers, I do my best. And
Mm,
it's really not something I think about, but I think it occurs naturally if I'm able to step back from my own parenting. Like my oldest, um, she's the oldest, so she's like a little bit more savvy. So I'm
mm,
able to like take her to the office or take her on a work trip or use my network of fishing friends to take her on a trip or something because I still get plenty of days. And
yeah,
you binge work hard sometimes, certain times of the year, but
yeah,
there's other times of the year where you have nothing but time for the kids.
yeah,
And I try to leverage that time. Like, also, each one of them has different, like, on their own natural interests. Like,
mm,
my oldest is like into music, so she's like drumming, so that's like her thing that I could like appreciate and share with her. My next oldest, she's like a golfer. She's super into golf. Has a beautiful swing for a 7-year old. And that kind
nice,
of like that's like my time with her is like I can bring
yeah,
her to the range. And then
yeah,
like my next one, she's only 5, but she's starting to become this like person, and I'm already seeing like her natural kind of interests and affinities, and it's like I love to like not force feed any of them any certain direction, but like applauding like their natural like interests and stuff. I think validates them wanting to like pursue things too. It's I'm learning, like I'm
yeah,
learning as I go, but honestly,
yeah,
it seems really natural and easy. And I think we stress ourselves more out as dads thinking about that stuff because in
mm,
reality, like it's such a natural thing, that like primal love connection to your child, like you're going
yeah,
to be like that great dad and you're gonna find time. Like there's not even like it's so many days in a year, like I'm as busy as I feel like I can be in the
yeah,
industry, but I still had 2 months, 3 months of just like hanging around the holidays with the
yeah.
girls,
That's awesome. Yeah,
so yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have any more. I think I'm basically capped
you're,
out, maxed
you're
out
maxed out.
on individual time. There's only so many days of the week, right? So
Yeah,
I've already got Monday through Friday covered. I
yeah.
can't have a Saturday and Sunday child because you're supposed to rest on the Sabbath. So,
There you go. Yeah, I like it. Have you set any like set of values or like rules for yourself and how you're managing work and like family life
oh
that
yeah.
you've been sticking to?
Well, I don't know if it's out of like requirement or not, but it definitely has gotten to a point where I can't edit at home. Um, because I feel so much guilt putting my headphones on if like one of them's crying or something like that.
Yeah,
So I have done better work recently by migrating the last 2 years having my own office space, like away from the home. Because when I go home, I can shut off. Like if my computer's at home and I know I
Yeah.
have shit to do and like shit to edit, I won't even focus on anyone in my family until it's done.
Mm. Yeah.
But if I leave in the morning with a coffee and I go in the office, if I work in the office for 4 hours, it's more effective than working at home for like 10 hours for me.
Yeah. Yep.
So clocking
Yep.
out and like shutting, like putting my mental, like art brain, creative brain on here, and then
Yep.
going back home and being able to be fully invested into
Mm.
being dad, like that's something I'm definitely going to keep because
Yeah.
it's nice to be at home. Like the kids love, oh, daddy's home, but it does more a disservice to like my work because
Yeah.
I can't truly like you gotta lock in and just like live in the computer. I can't do that
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because that was actually going to be my next question. Like, what have you done at home to create an environment for you to focus on work with five kids running around?
all I do at
So
home is like color correction and maybe like
yeah.
I'll bring some stuff back home, like design work, and like
Yeah.
if I'm done with an edit, I could just color a thing, but
Yeah.
I can't sit down and do and structure like, okay, here's all my files, here's my
Yeah.
timeline, go. I have to be
Yeah.
like, I need a cabin in the woods or like,
Yeah.
just silence.
So what does that office look like? Like you just rented some space kind of close to home that you can kind of escape to?
Yeah, when I was living in
Uh,
Vermont, that was my first like attempt at having an office space.
mm,
So I found this like super rad dude who owned a studio, like a full on studio. Half of it was an old carriage house with like 20-foot ceilings and timber
damn.
beams, and he was shooting for brands. Um, and I learned for a year of renting an office space and sharing the studio with him. I just like learned so much. But what I didn't expect to learn is that the work I did away from my house was like gaining quality
Mm,
because like I wasn't rushing through anything and I had time to like hear my own thoughts and like and do that. So now I've since moved from Vermont back to New York,
yeah.
but found like just an upstairs office room that I just have like this giant table. I've got all my cameras here. Just my whole life is here and
Yeah.
nothing is at home. No, none of my
Wow.
gear or anything.
Yeah.
And that just I drive here and I like it just feels better. I'm like I'm
Yeah.
in a better mental place to like do work
Yeah.
for clients.
Yeah. I think slowly having the same realization of knowing in the future, like as we start popping out a couple more, is that I think I'm gonna need to do something similar to that
I
because
mean, I'm an advocate. I highly recommend it.
yeah, because I don't know about you, but for me, I have like a think of like sports. I got like my pregame routine almost that I go through to get in the right creative headspace to truly like sit down and get creative with an edit, for example. And I need to be in that space. Otherwise, like I ain't getting shit done. Or if I do, it's going to be very surface level, like not
Yeah, barely any
go
changes. You're just
going
like trimming
going
some
through the
clips.
motions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think I've realized like in the future, and I've done that in a way at home because like you can't see on camera, but this is like a 400 square foot space, completely unfinished right
Yeah.
now. But it's a big loft above my garage where it's separate from the rest
Yeah.
of my house right now, which I'm up here out of necessity because my current office beside our front door is
Yeah.
now a kid's playroom.
Right.
But it's nice. I already notice a difference now just being up here and kind of separate from the rest of the house, how
Oh
nice it
yeah.
is. But at the same time, when I'm going down to take a piss or grab another
You
coffee or
throws you
whatever,
off. Throws you off.
you get sucked into
Yeah. And wait
like
till the thing is when they're 5, 6, 7, 8,
yeah.
9, 10, now they're old enough to invade your place up there.
Well,
And
yeah, good
and one
point.
wants to sit there and color next to you while you edit, and the other one
Yeah.
wants to sit on your chair and like,
Yeah.
slap your head or something. And like
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Which I love that, like
Yeah.
I'll 20 years from now, I'm gonna miss that.
Yep.
Um, and I know that. But but as far as like being professional, like my work level has improved 100% since
Yeah.
going to, since being able, also like I don't bring stress back nearly as much as I did. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I was the greatest person to be around for a while I was trying to like build my business
Mm.
and like, try to be a dad at the same time. But this way I could like clock in and clock out,
Yeah.
and every day, like when I go home, I could tell clients if they need changes, like, no problem. I'm on it in the morning, like at my
Yeah.
office.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a forced separation
It's
from the
forced.
work.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be away from them, but it definitely like helps me
Yeah.
because like you say, you have a pregame, I have a pregame as well, and it's like not safe to do at the house around
Yeah.
children most of the time.
That might be a good place to end it. Like what does that kind of pregame routine look like for you?
I just put on like some 70s vintage like rock and just light up a doobie and just look at the sky and kind of like just feel very like Ernest Hemingway looking at
Yeah.
trout from above the bridge, you
Yeah.
know. But no, I'm kidding. But it definitely is I need a chicken cutlet with hot sauce, melted mozzarella, a little bacon.
Yeah.
I like
Mhm.
that next to my computer as well.
Yeah.
I like a nice tall iced tea with some nice crushed ice in there, a little texture.
Mhm.
There's many things that aid my workflow, and they're all strange. So
I like it. So to get on your level, I just need to smoke a lot of weed and eat some chicken cutlets. Okay, I'll try that tonight.
no, no, I'm kidding. Especially for my kids who will watch. But
Yeah, yeah.
no, it's just like earlier, I guess, to leave the thing on. It's a bravery thing. If I was to think about like a theme of like how my career's gone, and for anybody that like wants to keep growing, you
Mm,
just have to like have moments of bravery
yeah,
in throughout your career to like be willing to do something different, or
yeah,
be willing to scratch your itch of like your vision, and
yeah,
you have to like carve out time for your thing, because people will tend to appreciate like something you pour your heart and soul into, and make you feel
yeah,
better too.
yeah. No, I love it, man. That's a perfect way to end this. I feel like that just came from like Saint Bud because you got like the halo
I
of the
see. I
light
was trying to
coming.
block it. I'm trying to sit here and like block it, but I can't.
Yeah, it's like word from the holy Bud.
Yeah, that's
But no,
funny.
I really appreciate you coming on, man, and sharing all the deep thoughts and everything and going through all this, man.
Oh, what a
It
pleasure.
means a lot. It means a lot, dude.
Yeah, no, this was a blast.
Good stuff. Hopefully, we'll see you soon this year. You're making me want to book a ticket now to iCast. Damn it.
Nah, I mean, listen, come down. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, might have to. Well, appreciate it, bud.
All right.
We'll see you
Appreciate you,
soon, man.
man.
All
Take
right,
care.
bye everybody.